Okay, welcome everyone to Club Officer Training for the Treasurer position, presented by Melinda McCormick. I'm your moderator, Jeff Hebert, the District 45 Program Quality Director for 2017 to 2018. This webinar is provided to our members to help you serve your club as a treasurer. This webinar covers the basic skills and responsibilities that you will use in your role, and in the next few months, our district will have Toastmasters Leadership Institute, where you will learn more about how to apply these skills. Today, we will review your role and have questions and answers throughout. So remember to use the chat box to ask and answer most of the questions. Each club is unique, so some of the treasurer responsibilities in your club may be performed by different members. As club treasurer, you are ultimately responsible for making sure that the work is done. Our trainer today is Melinda McCormick, Advanced Communicator Silver, Advanced Leader Bronze. Melinda is our Division C Director in New Brunswick. Her home club is River Valley Toastmasters in Woodstock, New Brunswick. So Melinda, now it's time for you to tell us all about the club treasurer role.
Thank you, Jeff. And hi, everyone. Thank you so much for attending. I see some names that I was really excited to have attend. Bill, you're one of them, so I'm hoping that you have your typing fingers ready to participate in some of the opportunities to give me feedback and to help information share as we move through the Treasurer Club Officer Training. So first of all, I want to say congratulations to everyone on their election as the treasurer of your club. You are your club's accountant. So many of you know, because we're partway into the year, that you are responsible for managing the bank account, collecting dues, submitting forms to World Headquarters, and ensuring that the financial health of your club is secure. So today's agenda, we're going to talk about 3 different areas that affect you as treasurer: the role of treasurer, your responsibilities as treasurer, and the resources that Toastmasters International provides to you in order to get that done. So the session's objectives, we're going to identify your role, fulfill your responsibilities, and find resources that help you. After completing the session, hopefully you'll be able to identify all of your roles and responsibilities inside the club meeting, outside the club meeting, and any responsibilities during the executive meeting that you as treasurer have to take on. So question for you, how many of you are first-time treasurers, and how many are returning treasurers? So if you could just type into the chat box if you're a first-time treasurer or if you're returning, that would be fantastic, and that's going to give me an idea of some of the support I have and the rest of you have on this call. Wow, lots of returning. This is exciting. So Kelly, you're a first-timer and you wanted control of the presentation. That is a brave, brave treasurer.
It's good to be here.
Okay, so let's talk about the club meeting. So as treasurer, are there any activities that any of you take on before the club meeting that you think helps the success of your club? Maybe some initiatives that you've taken or something that you've learned from previous treasurers who did such a good job in their role that you took on some of their best practices. Check the bank account. I like it. Oops. Check applications for fee structures. prepare in-depth treasurer report. And Deb, do you do a treasurer's report for every single meeting? For the first meeting of the month. That's great. Okay, I'm going to come back to some of these after. So as many of you know, the essence of the role of the treasurer is the club's accountant. You fulfill the responsibilities within the club and the club executive committee. You find the resources that help fulfill your responsibilities. So before the club, I'm trying to catch up to my presentation here, guys. Here we go. So, prepare a financial report. So Deb led right into my next slide. She said that in preparation for the first meeting of every single month, she prepares a financial report that she shares with, I'm not sure if you share it with your club executive or if you pass it out as part of the agenda. I'm a member of 4 different clubs, and I see this done in 4 different ways. I'm a member of a club where the treasurer passes out the information only to the club executive. I have another club who passes out the minutes at every single club, and they have a copy of the financials with it. So whatever way you do it, Deb also gives an oral report and post report on the website. Wow. So as part of club business, I'm assuming you give that oral report. So either way, helping your club understand the financial health of that club is going to make your club more successful. And in whatever way you want to not only prepare the financial report, but share it, it's only going to benefit your club to do so. A vital role of the treasurer is to collect the membership dues. Many clubs, I see other members of the executive will help in the collection of these dues, but ultimately you collect the dues and report on the club's finances. So whatever arrangement you make with your fellow executive members, it's great to work together as a team as long as it's done. But ultimately, you're responsible for the collection and the protection of those dues as well as the payments. Oops. Any other tips for all of you returning treasurers of any other activities that I haven't mentioned that take place during the club meetings? So Bill does an oral report once a month as part of club business, which is great. Linda Romani, her club uses e-transfers, which is amazing. Pablo is really good at pestering people to pay their dues. So we have a couple of people in our club. Actually, in my home club of River Valley, we have a returning treasurer. She was amazing right from the start at pestering people to pay their dues. Not only is she really good at pestering people to pay their dues, she's really good at pestering community leaders to pay or sponsor a membership, and then she recruits either students or people who may not be in a financial position to pay for Toastmasters, but who will benefit from it. So she helps gather additional funds, and as a club, we use that to sponsor other members. Square Up for credit card payments. So Sharon Joseph's club uses Square Up for credit card payments, and they increase the club dues by 2.75% because in order to use the convenience of Square Up. So that's great. So it's not coming out of the club fees. If I miss any as I go along here, Jeff, you can cut in and give it to me.
Will do. Actually, you missed quite a few, but that's okay. I think folks are having a lively side chat while we're listening. Yay. So that Excellent. Is good news.
Okay. So outside the club meeting, So we've already discussed preparing a budget. I think at any given time, it's important to have that budget up to date and ready. You should be updating it at least once a month. It's important for the executive to have it. But whenever other opportunities come up, like open house, or in one of my club's situations, when there's an opportunity to sponsor a community member, or if there is another expense that pops up like ribbons or anything like that, understanding the financial health of the club is going to help ensure that we stay on top of whatever the financial needs are of the club. Now, the bank account. It's really, I think of all of the roles, all of the executive roles, it's important to work with your predecessor, but especially as club treasurer, it's really important for a smooth transition to ensure that you understand how to transition over the banking information and the signing authority. Did anyone struggle with that this year? Or are there any best practices or learn from? Maybe we can, I'm not necessarily going to say them out loud, but if we can chat with any best practices for making that transition or any extra additional tips just so that everyone else on the call can benefit from it, we'll get to see some of the great tips from some of the returning members on how to make this transition smooth and simple. So as we discussed, collecting and paying dues. So collecting the dues from the members and paying the dues to World Headquarters, where there's different resources that we'll point out at the end. That there's a receipt document that you can print off from toastmasters.org, and you can pretty much do everything online anyway now, which is really great, because I remember when I first started at Toastmasters, we used to send off a check, and we had a charter scenario one time where we were really hoping to charter before the contest season, and boy, if we could have just gone online and paid electronically back then, it would have saved a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. One thing that Sharon popped on here is it's important for the president to take ownership of the signing authority. So as an executive, it's important to decide who's going to be on the bank signatory card, how many people are going to have control of that account, and it should be more than one person, because things happen. People move away, people drop off, they get busy in their own life, and if all your eggs are in one basket, that's a really big gamble for the success of your club when all of the club's finances are held by only one person. So make sure that that's a shared responsibility. One of the tasks it says here of the treasurer is to submit new member applications. I'm sure each executive is going to set up a structure between the VP of membership and the treasurer to see who wants to take on that responsibility. I've seen executives where it hasn't been either one of those who are submitting the new member applications. So as long as somebody's taken ownership of that, as club treasurer, make sure that you own responsibility for whoever stepped up into that role if it's not you personally, and pay attention to when those new member applications are submitted, because if somebody gives you their money and they're really excited about joining, and you don't do that right away, and they don't get that immediate feedback of welcome to Toastmasters International, and 2 weeks later or a week later they come to the club and it's still not submitted, that's not the first impression you want to leave with new members. So just make sure if someone's taken that action that you follow up with them to ensure that it's done. Issue checks for club expenses. Again, that's part of the monthly report, and sharing those details with the club is important. And keep good financial records. You want to make sure that if somebody does step into your role, either temporarily or permanently, that they can read your hen scratches. So maybe make it electronic, or ensure that you have a good, clean financial record that can be handed on for anyone else to benefit from. talks about submitting club accounts for audit. That, I'm assuming, Jeff, would you agree, is to the executive?
Well, there's some clubs have audits. It's something that probably ought to happen more often than it actually does. For the most part, yeah, most clubs are fairly lax about that. The main thing is that when you pass over funds, or anytime someone's working with funds, you want to make sure that no one's stealing it, or that folks are accounting for things correctly. At the district level, we pay a lot of attention to that, but typically at the club level, it's fairly small amount of funds. So clubs are generally, as long as you have receipts and blank, the canceled checks, that's usually enough to cover an actual audit.
Okay. It's important as the treasurer as well to attend the executive committee meetings, because you want to present a financial report to the executive, but you also want to be able to explain it to them. It's a big part of our executive meetings, especially at the Advance Club. The treasurer takes a good chunk of our executive meeting every single time to discuss the financial health of the club, so that we can strategize as an executive about what actions we need to take. And without the valuable input from the treasurer and that report, we would be taking half the actions blind, or guessing at what could make the club more successful. So it's really important to be in attendance at those meetings, because you play a vital role in those meetings. Reconcile deposits, expenditures, and cash on hand. So that's all part of that financial report. So what can you do as treasurers to make sure that all of your records are kept in good order? Any tips for the masses? I'm sure, Bill, you've got something to share, or Linda. What are some of your best practices for getting a nice, clean, thorough report to the club and to the executive? No money without receipts. That is a really important one.
Bill here, can I answer?
Sure.
Yeah, what I do is I keep both a ledger that I write in, and also I use a computer program, Microsoft Money, and I keep a ledger on that. And then at the end of the year, I will give a transaction report printed out from that to all the members of the exec, so that they will have that, and that lists every transaction that's happened, even down to $1 for a stamp over.
That's excellent. And Kelly, even as a new treasurer, said that she writes everything down in a Word document, and when she gets home, she keeps adding it each week to her treasurer report. I think that's an excellent best practice. What tips can you give as treasurer to make sure that membership dues are submitted either early or on time to you to make your life easier? Have you found any tips and tricks as either first-time or returning treasurers to get those dues to come to you before Toastmasters International expects them from you? Definitely start early. So give a soft deadline. You've got the hard deadline from Toastmasters International. I'm hoping that everybody has a soft deadline for their clubs. Maybe pick the meeting before it's due at headquarters and ask everyone to pay by that time. The other thing that our clubs, my main club, does is we recruit the commitment, especially from the executive and from a lot of the long-time committed members, and say, hey, some people are going to pay late, so can you pay early, and can you pay a full year at a time? Because we give our club members the opportunity to pay 6 months at a time or a year, but we get the commitment from the executive and from any of the long-standing committed members to pay for the full year, and it gives us an opportunity to have our funds accessible to us. Last chance phone calls. That's Linda Rumney shared, as many of you, I'm sure you can see, that she makes follow-up phone calls. So that's interesting. I don't know that the treasurer of my home club, I'm not sure that she would be comfortable doing that necessarily. But if you could control what is said on those calls so that we don't alienate anyone, I think that that's an excellent action to take under the right circumstances. Being able to pay online via PayPal really makes it easier to collect. Who said that? Pablo. Interesting. Lots of good tips. Okay, somebody's not muted and you're chatting in the background. I just thought I'd let you know in case you don't realize. Okay. So Ensure Club meets government tax regulations. Receive financial correspondence. I know that there's specific regulations for states like California. Fortunately, we go from Halifax to Vermont, so we don't have to worry about any of the California tax laws. If you have any questions regarding any of the club constitution or government tax regulations, you can call Toastmasters International, and I'll show you the resources at the end where you can call and ask a professional. If there aren't seasoned Toastmasters in your club who can answer your questions regarding any legal or tax requirements. And preparing the audit for the audit committee, we already talked about that. For any of you returning treasurers, have any of you done an audit on a regular basis where you have some sort of template that maybe we could share after the fact with everybody on this call? Because that'd be really something great to have. That'd be something great to have if that is something that someone has already. Okay, so let's move on to talk a little more in depth about the executive committee. So we talked before about the importance of preparing the budget to ensure the success of the executive committee and proper planning on a monthly basis. You present those financial reports to your executive committee, either for use in future planning or for audit purposes. And of course, you're going to be an active participant in the club success plan. There's many different initiatives financially that clubs take in order to pay for things like ribbons and all of that. So that's something that can be dealt with either in an executive meeting or as part of the club success plan when we talk about reward and recognition. How to fulfill the responsibilities of treasurer. The how, when, who, and what of this role, which I think is going to be a very interesting conversation considering the tenure we have on this call. So first question, and if you can just answer using chat, that would be fantastic. How do you fulfill this responsibility? So what are some of your best practices for how you take on this role and what you do? Have a good calendar for dates. I love it, Linda. That is excellent. It is really important as treasurer for you to be on top of all the dates. Hopefully you have a really strong executive and the VP of membership is reminding everyone of all of the membership drives, and the president is directing traffic your way as far as payments. Notify members early of upcoming deadlines. Exactly. So that really great calendar that Linda talked about is going to help you address the when. When will each action need to be completed? That calendar is going to control when each action is going to be completed. The next one, who? So who is available to help you? We already talked about the treasurer working closely with the other members of the executive, but don't forget about the rest of the club. There's some really eager club members who may think that they don't want to take on the responsibility of the executive role, but who are eager beavers or who have tenure. Maybe they're accountants, or maybe they've been bookkeepers for their husbands or wives over the years, and a past treasurer. Exactly. Don't be afraid to tap into those resources. And what materials and resources can you use to get all of this done? You have responsibilities related to the club meeting and the club executive, and all of those responsibilities help you and the entire club to achieve all of the club goals. I've heard different people. I've attended many TLIs and done the training in I've trained every single one of these roles, and every single time I go to a TLI, I'll hear someone say, oh, my role's not that important. It's so-and-so's role that's really important and vital to the club. I beg to differ. Every single one of these roles are so important, and as treasurer, I'm sure each of you know just how important. It's probably far more work and far more responsibility than you may have even known coming in the first time you came in, and many of you probably returned to this role because you understand the success of your club is really rooted around how well each of the executive members take on their roles, but especially the treasurer. In order to be a healthy club, you need money, and you need to collect the rolls. We'd love to be able to do everything for free, but unfortunately we can't. Linda pointed out too, it's the most legal role. So it really does, you're dealing with money, you're dealing with the bank, tax regulations, all of those, the monthly reports. The club's decisions are being made based around the financial numbers that you share with them. So it really, really is important. So some of the resources that you have available to you. Actually, I'm going to talk about resources after. Okay, so attending the district-sponsored club officer training. So aside from this training today, some of you may be on here because you missed the TLI, but hopefully most of you attended at least one TLI for the treasurer role.
They'll all be attending TLI in the next couple of months, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah. December, January, and some are even in February, aren't they, Jeff?
Yeah, most of them have been scheduled for January. We may have, plan on attending your January session. That should be in the next newsletter coming out in about a week.
Excellent. Yep. It says here some of the resources or reading materials. I know in preparation for this training and for training that I've done in the past, I've Googled. So we all have Facebook pages and resources from our past treasurers, but don't be afraid to Google. There's some really great resources and websites from other clubs, even in the United States, that I've pulled information from. I've also gone on to YouTube and looked up different details on the different executive roles. People will record presentations. So the very first time I took on the role of president, for example, I went to every YouTube channel where they said anything about the role of president. I haven't gone that far with treasurer, but that would be really interesting to see if there's some great resources on there as well for that. So Google is your friend. It'll bring up everything to do with Toastmaster Treasurer when you bring it up. I brought up a really great presentation just a few days ago. I was looking for treasurer, and it gave me this amazing 36 page PowerPoint, and it talked about moments of truth. It talked about every single role, and it was something that I thought, wow, I'm going to bring this to my club executives, because any one of our clubs could do a presentation using this other club's homemade PowerPoint, and everything inside of it was up to date. So it's only a couple of months old. So there's a lot of really amazing resources. Don't make the mistake I made the first time and pull resources with old branding and marketing on it. Cut and paste if you like the information on it and just validate that it's all accurate and current. Meet with outgoing executive committee. So whether it's just the past treasurer or the entire executive committee, you definitely want to meet with the outgoing treasurer, but it sure would be interesting to meet with the entire outgoing executive committee and say, hey, as incoming treasurer, what could I do? What tips could you give to me for the incoming executive committee that will make this club more successful, that will make this role more valuable to each of you in your roles? That's really good feedback. And don't be afraid to ask your current executive committee the same question. Not being afraid to get that feedback will just make your club more successful. Review policies and protocols, and as usual, prepare a budget. Review records, financial reports, and audit committee reports. And we already talked about the importance of a good record keeping system. So again, if you want to do like Kelly and take your notes, but then put it over to the main record system that you're going to share with the executive and the incoming treasurer the next year. Some of the resources I want to show you. Let's go to toastmaster.org here. The leadership handbook, of course, is for everyone, but there's also a section in there for treasurer. The club handbook, you can put the leadership handbook, club leadership handbook. It happens to be item 1310. So typically now, because I've brought it up so much, I've got that memorized, and I just put 1310, and look, club leadership handbook comes up. There's many other resources, and if you snoop around through all the resources on toastmasters.org, there's lots of pleasant surprises. There's a whole section in here for club officers. There's other resources in here, a resource library, for example. I'll show you a little bit of this as well. Under category, if you say club officer tools or training, what I did to cheat a little bit, I didn't care about file type, but I wanted to know every single item on toastmasters.org for treasurer. So under club officers tool, look at this handy little club dues receipt. Then under club officer training, I already have treasurer in here, and I did a new search, and then it brought up the club officer training. So feel free to do that in any of the categories under the resource library. It's almost like our own mini Google, and you can do a standard search, but I wanted to know in preparation for this training how many treasurer resources we had, and in over half of the categories you can bring up something that's going to be valuable to you. Just going to go back to the training. It talks about the Distinguished Club Program and the Club Success Plan. Can everyone chime in a little bit on chat and talk about, are you actively involved, or have you been actively involved in the DCP and the Club Success Plan in your club? Do you understand how vital your role as treasurer is in the planning and success of your club? I hope everyone says yes, yes. Always watching it. Excellent. If we don't get paid, we're not a club. You're right. So if we don't collect the dues or collect the dues on time, it's harder to get all those DCP points And everybody loves the ribbons that go on the banners. Work in progress. Yes, making sure the dues are on time. It's so important, and it's such an easy point to get if we just plan for it. Okay. Has everyone on here had someone show them, or already, I'm sure this time of year, considering the first wave has already happened, unless the outgoing treasurer or another member of the club logged in for you, everyone's gone online to toastmasters.org under Club Central and submitted club dues that way? Excellent. And another tool that it points out here that I think is so important is the use of the Toastmasters. Okay, Bill Sim, it was done by the secretary. So there you go. There's a treasurer who knows how to use his resources. So another member of the executive submitted the club dues on time using Club Central resources. So it doesn't matter who does it, as long as you, as treasurer, ensure that it's done on time by another member of the executive. So the use of Toastmasters material. See that bottom line item where it says www.toastmasters.org/membership lists. I'm going to give you a couple of tips. One, you should pull those membership lists, and keep that as part of your file, whether it's electronic or hard copy, it doesn't matter. Ask the outgoing treasurer from last year as well, because as people don't pay and don't renew, they drop off these lists. So you want to keep the lists, because maybe you want to reach out to someone who hasn't paid, or pay attention to who's paid and who hasn't. It's up to you as part of that executive to share with the executive. There's someone on this call who is a part of one of the executive clubs I'm on, and just a few days ago, she sent a note out to our executive and said, hey, I noticed on the member list that so-and-so is not signed up, and she's an active, valuable member. Who wants to reach out to her? Somebody made a phone call, and they've already set up when she's going to pay again. So it's that simple sometimes when you use the resources in front of you. And that member list, had I not surrounded myself with really incredible, resourceful Toastmasters, I wouldn't have thought of something like that right away. But now that's something that's top of mind for me. It's really important to use all of our resources. What are some of the other resources that are not on this list that you as treasurers have found invaluable to the success of your club, or building membership, or paying dues on time? What are some of the best kept secrets in the Toastmaster world? Right, Linda said also sometimes people say they need time away for personal reasons, and you need to be able to contact them later to re-invite or reconnect with them. Jeff was saying on the last call too that he had someone who got a promotion at work, which is amazing for them, but they were away for a few weeks because they had to focus on that promotion. And then they reconnected back to the club. Sometimes people just need to be pushed or reminded. I know sometimes my life gets crazy busy and I maybe don't want to attend a meeting, and I go anyway. And I'm so thankful when I walk out the door for the fellowship and the speeches and the laughs during table topics. And I can't imagine my night when I didn't go. And some of those members who have been away for a while, who let life get in the way, might need that reminder too. So, Pablo, free Toast host, admin panel, also lets you send renewal notices. Nice. That's not something I knew.
Yeah, Free Toast Host actually has some pretty good tools for connecting with past members, connecting with guests. Those are things that your VP membership or probably your VP membership should be working with. So make sure he or she is doing his or her job.
Okay. And Linda said that the great thing about Free Toast Host is you can personalize those notices too. Excellent. Very good tips. it's interesting how all of the executive positions cross over each other. So this is something that we talked about in the membership training, but it's so vital and so important to the treasurer role as well, because we're the ones that are collecting those resources.
Hey, Melinda, let's ask if there are any questions from the floor at this point.
Perfect.
Anything that you guys would like to talk about, or specific questions for Melinda? Well, apparently you covered everything.
Oh, Bill's got a question.
Yeah, I'm always asking this question. One of the reasons I get the secretary to make the online payment is because I'm very uncomfortable using my credit card online. My bank account has been hacked several times and thousands of dollars stolen out of it.
Wow.
So I'm very touchy about using my credit card online. So the secretary has been willing to use hers, but why doesn't Toastmasters give us some other method besides having to use our own personal credit cards to make the online dues payment? Like, can TI not have a PayPal account or something like that that we can pay it to, or something like that? Over to you.
Pablo said that you can get a debit card, your club's bank account.
We're not allowed to with our bank here, Toronto Dominion Bank.
Oh.
Yeah, well, that's a specific. Actually, that's a club-specific issue. What you're talking about, you guys could pick another bank. To be honest with you, I think that there are we have about 107 clubs in our district, and about 400 different methods for paying dues. Right, each club has a dozen different methods, and it's been a topic for years. Your situation is not unique. There are folks that are very tentative about doing credit card payments. In fact, you may notice about a year ago, the new member form changed. It used to be that there was a line item on the new member form for folks to write down on paper their credit card number, and we realized that was a big security breach. It's still part of the form now, but it's a separate sheet that is annoying for folks that have to manage the paperwork, but it's good for the members because you can actually easily destroy it. As far as payment methods, you have to work out with your club what you're comfortable with. A lot of clubs, my club included, I write a check to my club, and then my club pays the dues online for me. So you don't have to use a credit card.
That's what our club does. The members either give me, the treasurer, a check or cash, and then we make the online dues payment. The individual members don't do that. But you're still putting the club officers in the position of having to use their own personal credit cards.
I think you need a
PI business.
You should find a different bank then, because if your bank doesn't allow you to have that, then that's, I don't know. I bet you can get something like that from your bank, or have your bank do a wire transfer. That's also that is a completely valid way of paying Toastmasters dues. I haven't done it, but I know folks have done it.
It's something to look at, Bill, because if you look at all the notes in chat, there's quite a few treasurers that have a club debit card.
So I have a club debit card. Yeah, we have a club debit card too, but we aren't allowed to use it to do that kind of a transaction with it. So
that doesn't make any sense. I think that's something we should probably talk about offline, because your situation sounds unique and something is broken there.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe I should ask, does anyone else have a bank limiting card where you're not able to make payments like this? Type in your chat box if you have experience with something like this. I know that sometimes Canadian to US fund exchanges can be a problem, but I don't know of any bank cards that are limited like that. Well,
here they limit it. All banks here limit it like that when it's a club account.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I don't know.
I think the law here in Canada.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. I know we've had weird scenarios, but to be honest, I have not heard of this problem. So that's something I'll research for you. See if I can come up with an understanding of why that is.
Yeah. Any other questions? Quiet bunch.
Yeah, I think it seems like some folks have had issues, some folks haven't. It may be something about the specific type of account that's set up, but I'm going to have our district treasurer research this.
Yeah.
I feel like we have achieved our goal. So I'd like to thank you, Melinda. You're getting a few thanks from folks on the line. And I'd like to thank everyone for joining us and attending club officer training. This is a vital step in helping you support your club. There are many, many resources. Melinda showed you several of them. These webinars are some of them resources. The Toastmasters Leadership Institute, which will be happening next month, is a resource. Obviously, other club members, other club treasurers, and Toastmasters.org. So please use those resources. Use them to help your club achieve excellence. And before you go, please click on this survey link I'm about to post in the chat box. If you're listening to the recording, wherever you find the link to the recording, you should also find a link to the survey. Please fill out the survey to give Melinda some feedback on the training. And also, if you type in your email address, that will get you some credit towards, I'm making a list and checking it twice of good club officers, and that will get you on the list. So please, everyone, click on the link, fill out the survey, and thank you again, Melinda, for taking your time and teaching us all about Treasurer.